Hello, it's Ollie Atson here again, and we're out here in the cold. So today we're outside my house, and I'm filling up a wheelie bin here, which hopefully you can see, in order to conduct a wheelie bin test on the components. It's all a bit Heath Robinson, as you can see. The reason for this is I'm still not confident enough with this equipment following the last issue to actually do a proper at-sea test, so I've still got it in bits. There are some key changes since the last time. I've added some fans. Now these aren't actually attached to anything meaningful at the moment because because it's minus something, and I don't think we're going to need them. I've also added a mechanical fan onto the motor, which I think you can see, hopefully, in the pictures that should be on the screen now. I've also added a Bluetooth link, so today I'm going to be, hopefully, fingers crossed, controlling and monitoring this system from inside the house where it's warm. So I'm just going to wait for the wheelie bin to fill up, and then So while the wheelie bin's filled up, as I was saying, you'll notice I've modified the transition plate on the motor, dropped it down quite a bit, and then underneath there's this big mechanical centrifugal fan, and that I had 3D printed, and that blows air out over the base of the motor and seems to be pretty successful in the testing. Also here, I've attached a temperature sensor to the motor itself, and that's feeding in to the main control unit. Excuse the bird's nest of wiring. In my defense, a lot of it is actually just from spare wires on the controller that I don't use, and these fans that I haven't plugged in properly yet. So that allows a variable speed on the fans and monitoring of the motor temperature in more or less real time through the Bluetooth link, which is through the French doors there into my living room. I'm going to do a quick test now with the touch controller here, as you can see, and just give it some beans. So that's about 40% power. It's about 60% power there. That's maxi chat, so that's quite good. Not too much water coming out. Stop it and then press the home button. Then go to mode, select Bluetooth, and we'll go inside and try this out. Well, it's a good job I'm English and like tea. Okay, so that was a little bit more tricky than I thought, but it looks like we are finally set up. We're getting the temperature here. Now, those LM32DT temperature sensors don't go below 0 unless you give them a negative voltage, which I haven't got. So see that my speed reading and my power reading is down for some reason. It's the same on the display. I suspect there must be a connection buggered somewhere. Not to worry. The main thing really is the temperature, and that's still coming through. I've just stepped it up to 100%. Bizarrely, now the power readings come back, although I'm not convinced about it, and the speed hasn't. It's really odd. I honestly, I'll just have to have a look at it later. I've currently got the fan off as well. I'm basically trying to get the temperatures to raise a bit. That said, I might turn the fans on because the controller mounted fans are not obviously benefiting from the mechanical fan on the motor. I also want to be clear that the power is obviously calculated by a function of the voltage and the current. Now, for whatever reason, it's clearly not reading the current properly. I reckon, well, when I measured it before, I think the power at full oomph is about 1,000 watts. Now obviously, because the battery is not particularly well charged, we're obviously going to be down on that quite a bit, but even so, there should be something. As I say, I've turned the fans on here. You can see them roaring away out there along with the rest of the battery. Now the temperature is very slowly rising on the motor, but I'm quite confident, to be honest, that that plastic mechanical fan on the motor is a good solution, because it really throws out a lot of air. The test has been running for about 15-20 minutes and we don't seem to be having any serious issues. The temperature on the motor has only risen to 20 degrees from 5 initially. Just to be on the safe side, I've sort of chucked the fans in and around the controller and turned them on full. We are still running at 100%. The voltage is very low. I know I'm running a risk of damaging the battery, but a couple of things to be aware of. One, that voltmeter isn't particularly well calibrated, and therefore it's probably a bit higher than that. And as we've seen, the amp meter really isn't playing ball, and the speed meter isn't playing ball either, which is a bit of a shame, because this logs all of this data in a file for analysis later. Having said that, to be honest, there might not be any point in doing any analysis, because seems to be working fine, basically. You know, the main reason for running this test was just to investigate the temperature rise on the motor and on the controller. I've not got a temperature monitor on the controller, but I have got fans on it, which is why I've turned them on full. And the motor, with the addition of that fan, it just doesn't seem to be giving me any problem at all. All this other sort of instrumentation stuff, battery stuff, I'm not too concerned about that. I can fix that pretty straightforwardly, I'm sure, and I know what the issue with the battery is. It's that the charger's blown up. Really, all I'm trying to achieve today is to run this as long as I can, and if the controller does not blow up, then I'm going to feel a lot better. Well, unfortunately, I have one quite serious issue. I'm out of tea. Well, we're still going strong. I've found out what the speed sensor issue is. It's this wire here has come out of the plug. Yeah, I know there's water everywhere. Again, I'm really not too stressed about it at the moment. It's fresh water. I can dry it off later. I've checked the temperature on the controller. It's as cold as ice, obviously. Again, the motor is actually about what it says on the temperature. I'd say it's about 20 degrees. You can just about, actually maybe more, I can just about feel it, so it's probably about 25. Obviously now the sensor here, if I touch where that is very cold, because that's located next to the fan. So what's happening is the heat's rising in the motor and it's a bit warmer at the top. So yeah, I think the temperature sensor is going to be pretty accurate. I've used those LM32 GTs before on my solar heater projects and they're dead reliable. Voltage has dropped. I've measured it down here. We're at about 46 volts, which is a bit low really, but on the Chinese machine here, it's telling me we're only half empty. So I'm inclined to just run it and keep running it until we get to a stage where there's not much point in running it anymore. And yeah, I guess that's probably a good idea of, my estimate probably wasn't far off. 31 degrees at the bottom of the motor probably is going to equate to about 40 at the top. So currently showing 32 here. Located the old temperature equipment, so let's go and find out what it's doing out there. So it's showing about 23, 24 on the top, but obviously the albedo, etc. of this thing won't be spot on. Down at the bottom it's still saying 5 degrees, but to be perfectly honest, that feels about 30 to me, and I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, still fairly happy. I think we've been running the test for about 40 minutes now. No issues. So had a bit of a software crashed halfway through, but the advantage of that is that I can actually look at the log file here from the first successful software whilst it's still churning away out there. And just to give you an example of what this thing logs, it will log the time, the message, the operating mode. So operating mode is 0, it's locked. 1, you operate it in hand mode. 2, you operate it in the touch control mode. And 3 is Bluetooth. And 4 is remote, but I haven't got that yet. Throttle position, obviously, as we said, when I started it at 50% roughly, and then I've just dunked it up to 100% at, let's find out, 1539. As we can see, it's now 1608, so as I say, roughly 40 minutes now of, is that right? Oh, sorry, silly me. Roughly 30 minutes now of running at full power. So while we're waiting, get your toys out, why not? Somebody gave this to me for a birthday present a few years ago. I've got to be honest, the somebody was me. It's hard to believe I'm single, isn't it, really? There you go. So it's now 1620. Still seems to be running. The voltage doesn't seem to have dropped that much. Temperature's gone up to about 40 degrees indicated. I think that's just it soaking through on the motor. Again, I'm not too stressed. That's exactly what this test is designed to find out, is how this motor behaves. I think, however, it's going to be a pretty rare day that I want to run this for 40 minutes at full power continuously. Although, of course, with the battery voltage the way it isn't. I don't think we're anywhere near full power, to be honest. I reckon we're probably down to about 500 watts there. Obviously, we can't pay too much attention to how much the water's moving about, because quite a lot of it has found its way out of the bin. On the positive side, I have managed to eat my lunch, so happy days. And we're still a bit bored. Go to the old bookshelf. Found this book recently. Really, really good. It's very old. It's from the 70s. Explains physics really, really easily. Recommend it. It's called From Naught to Relativity by Alan M. Munn. As I say, good book. Oh, and of course, I've managed to crash my monitoring system, and I don't want to reboot it in case it screws with the outboard. I'm just going to let the outboard run. I can monitor it here. I'm now at a stage where I'm not worried enough that I'm going to blow something up that I want to come back and, you know, have a full look at these log files. Oh my, but if you want a really good book, Not Much of an Engineer by Sir Stanley Hooker. I kid you not, this is one of the biggest influences on my life. This guy was incredible. I'm not even going to spoil the book by giving you a précis. It's that good, you should go and read it. Just read it. Honestly, read it now, thank me later. I'm not going to say it's done its job well, it's done its job really badly, but then that's probably because somebody not very good programmed it. So we'll essentially leave that as is. We'll let this run probably, I reckon, another 10 minutes. If it's holding up in another 10 minutes, we'll call the test at about an hour. Actually, yeah, 15 minutes, if we can. It's gone 16:30, and I'm just going to call a halt to the test now. The battery voltage has dropped basically to about 43. It's too low really to keep going. I don't really want to write the battery off just because the charger's exploded. And anyway, that's a whole other situation. I think I've proved the point. I mean, yeah, the software that I wrote didn't really perform as well as I'd hoped, which is putting it mildly. It did crash about halfway through the test, but to be honest, by then I'd gained confidence that I wasn't really going to need the log files that it was logging anyway. So, you know, that's a good thing. It looks like this new controller is probably not going to blow. So I've run it for, what, 50 odd minutes there. Most of that time's been at full power and we haven't had any issues. However, there's a couple of things. Obviously the current isn't reading properly and that's skewing the power. I think that's partly my fault because I did modify the slopes on that when I got the new controller for some reason that seemed sensible at the time. So I'll have to recalibrate that. There's an outside possibility, of course, that it was drawing a lot less current than I would have expected. That's certainly a possibility as the voltage drops. However, even then, I wouldn't expect it to be performing sort of less than 500 watts, even at the tail end. And certainly at the beginning, it looked like a sort of 1,000-watt machine. It certainly seemed as powerful as it did when I had it on the canal. The motor temperatures dramatically reduced. You know, at no point did that motor feel anything more than slightly warm to the touch, which is good. Obviously, when I had it on the canal, it was too hot to touch, so clearly that fan's working well. Next steps are the steps I've been promising to do for months, which is actually sort out all the little niggling issues and package it up into something that you can actually use. That's hopefully going to get done. I'm not entirely sure when. As usual, I'm stuck for time. Obviously if you've got any questions or comments, get in touch, and in the meantime, thank you very much for watching.